Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Story number 1, The Xenovet, written by Yama Galathan. The humans are, well, uncanny. We joined the Galactic Federation around the same time as them, meager 3 years prior. When I first saw one of them, I got a weird sort of whiplash. You know this feeling when your mind goes, yeah, nope, bye. He was tall, at least a head taller than me, 2 hands, 2 legs, 2 eyes, nice eyes, with a pretty shade of brown, short hair that was naturally a splendid dark gold, broad arms and somewhat visible muscles on them. He looked like one of us. Not quite though. I'm considered tall by the standard of my species, tall and bulky, nonetheless. He was even bigger. His hair and eyes were absolutely stunning, even for me, and I'm not even into men. And don't get me started on the way he stood or glanced around. It was so familiar yet so wrong. Maybe not wrong, just creepy. Yeah, he was absolutely creepy and absolutely attractive, but I decided to leave that to the female part of the crew. His name was also uncannily familiar, Frederick. For course sake, the father of my father was named Illideric. Something was on. For a moment, I even considered the thought of our species being one, just split in half by some cataclysm or war long ago. But then I remembered we were from literally 6 galaxies apart. No way an ancient civilization could traverse this space, not without wormholes. It was just a cruel twist of evolution. It did not stop being creepy. Frederick was our new crew member, a healer, or, as he called himself, a Xenovet, whatever that means. I observed him closely for the next few cycles and still couldn't shake that feeling of wrongness. It only got worse when he somewhat started to, mimic our facial expressions. His were fine and similar enough to ours when he started his voyage, so there was no need to assimilate them more. We understood a freakish amount, a lot, about his body language already. Still, he started to wrinkle his nose when uncomfortable instead of huffing. His gestures got sharper and more concrete. Heck, he sometimes didn't call us any more vocally and just clapped as every other of us. No other crew member or race different than ours adapted so quickly and thoroughly. A lot did not adapt at all. Of course, there were some bumps in the road, as when someone, it was me, I'm dumb, I know, took his stifled laugh as crying, or when he in turn mistook my display of protectiveness over food as being in pain. Or when Jill said to his face that he was the sexiest goddamn being she'd ever saw. Anyways, he got along with us brilliantly. After some time, maybe it was a season, I kind of stopped seeing the differences. I think you could ask me then, what species is he? And I would respond with a firm and thoughtless Saphixian, as me and half the crew. I remembered that he was human only when he accidentally cut himself with a knife. The sincerely small gash on his hand was bleeding a really inadequate amount. And this was the day I discovered that humans, these fecking mimics, had red blood. Not the polite blue of half the galaxy, not the acid green of the Sluli, not even the Sephaxian goldish pinkish hue. Red like the banners of the Federation. And red blood is a really creepy sight, I tell you. But well, this only cemented my theory about cruel evolution. My hopes about seducing a human female got suddenly a bit more bleary. Frederick, in turn, was not unsettled, even a bit, when another Sephaxian crewmate, I think it was Dex, went to him with a bloody gash on his forehead, made by a flying piece of an old accumulator that exploded. The title of Xenovet Healer apparently requires a lot of knowledge about anatomy of everybody. Luckily for me, he did not seem upset when he caught me staring at his already half-healed cut. Even better, he explained to me what had happened and how does his circulatory system work. He is the epitome of being chill and feeling good in my body. Absolutely shameless. Not that our doll will tell him anything, but walking down the corridor, only in boxes to go get a salve in the infirmary even one more time, will get him assaulted by the female part of the crew. Or Bob will die in his own blood. Poor guy, he's a ginormous crush. I'm not joking. But, well, Maybe he's chiller than the peak of Mount Justeri in winter season, but I am not. So it was me that nearly died of when my mother video called me. He was at the infirmary at the time, dropping off some pieces of prosthetic, and Frederick was behind me, stirring some of his favorite drink of his, a foul-smelling dark liquid called coffee. Mom, dearest, I know that you love me, but the next time maybe don't call a friend of mine as sexy orc when you see him in the first time. I was never in my whole life more embarrassed. Frederick only stood here dumbfounded for a moment, and then started laughing uncontrollably and sputtering some nonsense about Lord of the Rings, Sauron master plan, and the damned FF. I quickly and silently left the room, first time seeing the infamous human aesthetic fit with my own eyes. It was not known to the Federation, but we also had familiar fits, although never about something so random and, well, insulting. Calling someone an orc was like calling someone a dumb slut. Only worse, and well, I've never before or after heard it paired with the word sexy. Mom, to borrow a human phrase, what the feck? Anyways, I like our human. If the rest of them is even a bit like him, I see a bright and peaceful future before our races, and a freaky amount of warny Sasfaxians, but well, you take what you can get. P.S. I asked Frederick, apparently Sasfaxians are attractive by human standards. He just has already a life partner on his home planet. They call us space elves, whatever that means. So maybe I can get a shot with someone. Yes! But that does mean there will be a lot of horny humans too. This can complicate things on a large scale. Not my problem, though. End of story. Story number 2. The Xenovet, Pets. Written by Fiamma Galathan. I've seen a lot while dealing with our human. Frederick was a force to be reckoned with, even if he is a healer. Or maybe because of that. In retrospective, it wasn't strange, not at all. But when a pirate was holding me at gunpoint, my paralyzed crewmates lying around, motionless, and he, of all people, just straight up tore the attacker apart. I was scared crapless. Logically, my mind knew he must have known that the Terracula was somewhat soft under their exoskeletons. He was a cross-species healer. These things are common knowledge, especially in these circles. But my fight-or-flight part saw an unarmed, bloody, and snarling human that grabbed the pirate and squeezed until all of his organs pulled around its feet. And his eyes, oh for God's sake, his brown, normally so warm and calming eyes, I could have sworn that they were glowing with something that screamed a millennia of war and bloodshed. Half of the crew started avoiding him after that, not alienating but avoiding, especially when he seemed upset. The other half, well, apparently there was a betting pool whose romantic novel will get published first. Gross, if understandable. Another thing happened when we had a short shore leave on a rather wet planet. There was only water in sight around the landing platform. Sophixians don't exactly hate water. It's just more of an inbuilt warning to not go swimming, as on our home planet there is a myriad of things that want to kill us in any body bigger than a puddle. I, for example, can't swim, as for a majority of our crew. Turns out humans are, Frederick insisted we go to the beach nearby. Well, as much of a beach as it was. More like a concrete slide descending into the water. I agreed, as sunbathing is something I enjoyed, and the water seemed shallow and clear enough to see any eventual predators. I even took my blaster, in case something decided to crawl out of it anyway. First of all, I hadn't considered that Frederick would also wear only underwear. My bad, I felt inadequate. Like, he's got abs, and chest hair. And me, even with my somewhat physically taxing work, I still look like a twig in comparison. Fortunately, the girls haven't caught a sight of us. Second of all, he came here not to sunbathe. He came here to swim. And I nearly died of an aneurysm when this idiot jumped straight into the water and emerged only a minute later. And he was laughing, because, apparently, Even if humans are not aquatic species and don't have fins, they still love swimming, and Frederick took to the water like a Nyessa. The fact did not help me calm down, but it gave even more fuel to the already raging wildfire of our crew's hardcore romance writers. I'm starting to regret telling our roommates about this trip. Anyways, did you know that humans are pretty flexible? And I don't mean physically. Sphyxians are much more bendable, but mentally, it appears that nothing can break this weirdly wired brain of his. A species with 8 different systems of determining the year. At home, we had worse. A patient is apparently poisoned by air. Sometimes happened, bud. We get stranded on a wild and dangerous planet for a week. Well, thanks to Mom, I was in the Scots. We will survive. This place seems quieter than the woods behind my home. I'm starting to ask myself if this is their species quirk, or if Earth is so different. After a while, we started noticing his growing homesickness. Everybody agreed it couldn't be. We needed to do something. I, being the closest one to him, suggested that maybe we could give him an earthly pet, as he seemed to love animals. We did some digging in the galaxy net, and decided to buy him a so-called cat. These earthly felines seemed to be the easiest to accommodate, and they were relatively small, so we did. The seller seemed pretty suspicious, but hey, who am I to judge? It was a youngling with completely black fur and yellow eyes. It looked cute, until we gave it to Frederick, and his eyes went impossibly wide. This wasn't a cat, or not a domestic cat at least. It was apparently a panther cub. We decided to keep it anyway, as a ship bodyguard, although the shop where we bought it got immediately reported. End of story. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and patrons. Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Parky, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Lord Azrakal, and Arcadian.